Namaste. Welcome to the Festival of Bharat. I'm your host Kamal Madi Shetty, and this is season 4 of the Festival of Bharat. Today, we have a very special guest with us, with whom we are going to discuss various issues related to India's diversity, pluralism, and various media narratives, as well as what it means to be a Muslim in India. And to discuss all of this, we have a very special guest, Subuhi Khan ji. Subuhi ji is a lawyer at the Supreme Court, a social activist, a writer, and a thought leader. She works on various socio-political issues and particularly is known for her activism against separatism, extremism, and terrorism. She's a well-known voice on national media and appears regularly on various TV channels covering all of these various issues. Currently, she is running a nationalist movement, which is called the Rashtra Jagran Abhiyan, and is traveling throughout the country to unify all Indians. Namaste, Subuhi ji, and welcome to the Festival of Bharat.
Namaste, Jai Hind, Vande Mataram. Thank you so much for inviting. It is my pleasure and honor to be a part of the Festival of Bharat.
Thank you so much, Subuhi ji, for joining us. Subuhi ji, I want to, like I said, I want to begin by asking, about India's pluralism and diversity. There are so many societies across the world, so many civilizations, be it the West, be it Islamic countries, China, but nowhere do you see the kind of pluralism and even acceptance that you see in India. We are a culture which sort of believes in, ekam sat vipra bhahuta vadanti. I wanted to ask you, can you tell us about what is the ethos of Bharat, the way you see it, and what is the foundation of this culture?
Thanks for asking this beautiful question, Kamalji. I think it is a very relevant question that you've asked, and everybody, people from different walks of life should learn and should know what exactly is our culture. What do we mean when we say Bharat, and what do we mean when we actually celebrate the festival of Bharat? The question is very close to my heart. And as you rightly said, that we believe in Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. That means truth is one, but there are many ways and many paths to reach that truth. And our culture and our collective consciousness is actually defined so beautifully in this verse. If we talk about Bharatiya culture or Bharatiya society, as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in the world, in any country, you would find such a pluralistic society, and, where people from different belief systems, different cultures, or you can say different backgrounds, different lifestyles can coexist and can celebrate each other. And when we talk about this collective consciousness, definitely this question comes to our mind, that where does it come from? When you talk about the foundation of Bharat, what exactly define this ideology or this belief system? See, we do not believe in one specific book, and that is the beauty of it. We do not believe in one specific way or one specific list of do's and don'ts, or you have to do this, only then you would be a Bharatiya, or you do not have to do this, otherwise you would cease to be a Bharatiya. We do not have that kind of a rigid, do's and don'ts kind of a lifestyle. When we talk about scriptures, we have many of them, like we have Shrutis, we have, in Shrutis, we have Veds and Upanishads, we have Smritis. That means the teachings of sages. Like all of us have heard about Manusmriti, then we have Yagvalk, we have Brihaspati, and these are the Smritis which the sages have heard and transferred through their, just word of mouth. And then we have Purans, 18 of them, and we have books of Ethos, history, that is Ramayana and Mahabharata. And I would like to reiterate that Ramayana and Mahabharata are not Puran. They are the history of Bharat. The Itihas means it has happened. Like the incidents that we are told in Ramayana, the stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata are actually the history of Bharat. It has happened. Those superheroes have existed on this land. And then we have 4 Veds. We have 108 plus Upanishads. and so many faiths. I belong to Islam, like I belong to one specific faith which is being celebrated in Bharat. And one very important message I want to cover in this question is, I understand that for youth it is very difficult to, learn so many scriptures or to get the teachings out of it or to actually understand it. So I always encourage youth to just understand four Mahavakyas of our Ved. When we talk about four Veds, of one we say that every Ved is summarized in one single sentence that is called Mahavakya, and very beautifully explained. Four Mahavakyas or four Vedas are Ahem Brahmasmi, that means मैं ही ब्रह्म हूँ. Another Mahavakya is Tattvamasi, तुम भी वही हो, you are also that divinity. And Pragyan Brahma, that means knowledge is Brahma. And fourth Mahavakya is Ayam Atma Brahma. That means वह आत्मा ही ब्रह्म है. So this teaching of that belief that we need to understand that the divine exists in everybody, in me, in you, in everyone. And that feeling of spiritual oneness is so beautiful, that belonging, that atma, paramatma, everything is just one. So we do not believe in the separation of caste, creed, gender, or white and black, or minority majority, that kind of a beauty we have in Bharatiya culture. And if you talk about Hindu culture, and we have Shaiv, we have Shakt, we have Vaishnav. In Shaiv, we have Kapalik, Kalamukh, Pashupat, Lakulek. In Vaishnav, we believe that we have 10 avatars of Lord Vishnu. In Shakt, we believe that there are almost 108 Shakti Peeth Mandir, and Durga, Kali, etc. We like all of us know about that. And if you talk about different faiths, we have Bodh. Some people believe that Bodh is a separate religion or a separate faith. However, we believe that Gautam Buddha was also one of the 10 avatars of Lord Vishnu's. So even if we consider it as a different faith or a different religion, in both there are Hinian, Mahayan, Vajrayan, different belief systems they have, even in different faiths. In Jain, they have Shwetambar, Digambar. Sikhs believe they've had 10 gurus. I belong to Islam faith. In Islamic society, we believe in one God. That means Ekeshwarvad. And even that is not separate from Hindu culture. I always say that Sanatan Dharm, when we say Sanatan Dharm has many Vads. So Ekeshwarvad is one of the Vads of Sanatan. So even Islam is not separate from Sanatan Dharm. And this belief that the God is one, that Par Brahm Parmeshwar or Nirgun Nirakar Brahm is one, that is Ekeshwarvad. They've just given it a different word, they've given it a different form, and they explain it differently, but message is the same. That is why I came, actually I coined a term called Sanatani Musalman. I call myself a Sanatani Musalman, that I have chosen a path, like my family, maybe my forefathers have chosen a path, have chosen a faith, have chosen a religion. So I have full respect for that. I believe in Islam faith, but that is not different or exclusive or separate from Sanatan Dharma. And that is why I believe that my dharma is Sanatan, my panth is Islam, and my national identity and my Sanskriti is Hindu. So there is no clash. Sanatan, Islam, and Hindu, all are, I can maintain all of them together, and I can really live them, all of them together. That is why I do not feel the clash of loyalty. Okay, being a Muslim, I proudly say that I'm a Hindu, because Hindu is a culture, Hindu is a geographical and a national identity. So I have given you these examples just to explain that beauty of this pluralistic society and belief system and this culture that we have. What a magnificent and a glorious foundation and ethos we have as Bharatiya. We have beautiful scriptures, we have glorious history, we have cultural and moral values, and very flexible beliefs and attitudes and habits. And we have respect and love for each other. We can coexist together, while following our own belief systems, are following our own choices, our faiths, we can exist together beautifully, and we do not tolerate each other. I always say that tolerance is not the word for Bharat. We do not tolerate but celebrate each other. So that is what Bharat is, to answer your first question.
Absolutely, Subhuji. You put it so beautifully. Thank you so much for sharing that. You mentioned about how in India we go beyond just tolerance. I mean, when you look at the West, for example, there's so much talk about tolerance, but we in India have always gone much beyond that. We talk about mutual respect, and we celebrate, like you said, different ways of thinking. And yet we see a section of people, and be it certain political parties or the media, and it could be media in India or maybe even foreign media. They're very determined to paint India in a particular way, labels like intolerant, or there are so many other ways in which this is being done. So why does this happen? I mean, who, and more importantly, I think, who are these forces, and what is their agenda?
Very, very good question you've asked. And as you mentioned in the introduction part of this interview, I'm running a campaign called Rashtra Jagran Abhiyan, in which I'm exposing all these anti-national forces, what are the theories which they're following, what is their agenda, what is the modus operandi they have. And I'm explaining these anti-national forces categorically and specifically, and I would like to cover them here also, not in detail, but I would like to name them at least. I have categorized these acidic substances or these anti-national forces in 6 categories. First anti-national forces is radical left and communists and their armed wings like Maoists and Maowadi and Naxalites. That is first anti-national force which is working against Bharat. Then the second anti-national force is separatist and terrorist movements which are being run in the country. That there are of 2 kinds. One is the belief of breaking Bharat and making an Islamic state, the theory of Ghazwa Hind, you know, that Dvirashtravad wali theory which made Pakistan. And there is another separatist and terrorist movement running in Bharat, which is breaking Bharat and making Khalistan. You know, so these 2 main separatist and terrorist forces are working against Bharat. Very, very important anti-national force. We need to understand because they're very insidious, they're very dangerous, and working day and night against our country. And third anti-national force is intellectual terrorists and urban Naxals. They are also very dangerous, Kamalji, very dangerous because they are suited, booted. They put their version in a very constitutional way, and they are very insidious. They try to what do you say? They are just trying to take away the youth of Bharat away from India, and they are. They tell us a wrong history, and they are sitting at all the important positions. They are in bureaucracy, they are in media, they are in academics, they are in politics, and very difficult to identify them, very difficult to identify them. They are intellectual, and they know how to play with the psyche of humans, especially youth and kids and school going children of our country. So we need to understand those anti-national forces also who are actively running this campaign against Bharat. And I call them intellectual terrorists and urban Naxals. And then there is another anti-national force called international powers. There are many countries who are afraid of Bharat's glorious and Bharat's strong history, and they know the day Bharat will understand its unity and its actual foundation and ethos, Bharat will become so powerful, and nobody can stop Bharat from becoming a Vishwa Guru. So those international powers are also working very actively and very proactively against our country. We need to understand and identify and recognize those anti-national international powers also. And then another anti-national forces, I call them subtle conversion movements which are running in the country. They would not come on a horse, taking that sword in their hands, but they are running that subtle conversion movements. They identify people who are weak, who are poor. They would give you maybe food or maybe listen to your problems, and on the other hand, they would ask you or influence you or motivate you or pressurize you, even by using violence and many other ways. They would try to convert you, spreading their faith. I always say, as an officer of the court, I practice in the Supreme Court of India, I always say that Article 25 of our Constitution give us the right to practice, profess, and propagate our religion. It is an absolutely a constitutional right that we have. But if we manipulate and influence, and we try to just manipulate that right and use it against Bharat, that is happening. Many fundamental rights are being manipulated these days, which is wrong, and we must recognize it. By force you cannot convert anyone. By influence, by manipulation, and by violence, by aggression, and by running campaigns and agendas, you are simply trying to convert people just to spread your faith. That is unconstitutional. Would be a very small term, would be like trivializing it. It is a very big threat which is working, an anti-national force which is working against Bharat. And last but not the least, Kamalji, one anti-national force is, I call them vidharmi rajnetik partiyan, vidharmi political parties that we have. And by dharm I means performance of duty. Dharm does not mean religion. Dharm means differentiating between right and wrong. Dharm means performing your duty, kartavya palan, I call it. So, Vidharmi Rajnatik Party, Vidharmi political parties are those parties who are obviously, of course, there are people, but their main vision, their main agenda is just to stay in power. And to stay in power, they can shake hands with any anti national force. So that's what they've been doing. So to answer your question, like why they're doing it, they are afraid of Bharat. That is why they're doing it. And they're afraid of our historical past. That is why they break us, because they cannot fight with Bharat as a whole. It is beyond their capacity. It is मैं एकदम हिंदी में बोलती हूँ तो हैसियत नहीं है किसी की कि भारत से कोई लड़ सके. सब लोग एक होकर भी नहीं लड़ सकते. That is why they break us in groups to defeat us, to invade us, to rule us. And who are these forces who are doing it? I've already covered. And you asked me what is their agenda. Their agenda is to break Bharat. So we as Indians, we as Bharatiya need to understand and map or identify these anti-national forces very clearly. Because first we need to understand that what is the problem, only then the solution comes. First we need to diagnose the disease, only then it can be cured. Now we are at a position that we are not in a position to even recognize them. We are so confused, we are so broken, and we are so divided in groups. So we need to become Bharatiya, we need to become one, we need to understand that and realize that spiritual oneness, and then fight with all these anti-national forces together. Only then we can prove ourselves to be true Bharati or true sons and daughters of the land.
Very fascinating, Subhuji. I think that was a very clear and comprehensive account of the various overt and covert forces that have been working against Bharat. Thank you for that. Uh, you know, I want to specifically come to Muslims in India, and how there seems to be almost a coordinated effort by a lot of media houses to portray India in a particular way, like hostile to Muslims, and they do that by cherry picking certain isolated incidents. So can you tell us how is this narrative, this fake narrative, being built by these forces?
Sure. Kamalji, see, people are very intelligent. People understand that something is wrong, but they are just not able to put finger on it. Okay, this is happening, or this has happened. So I would like to summarize it, or maybe try to express it. See, when we talk about that, Muslims, the situation of Muslims is bad in India. This kind of a narrative building is being done these days. At times, I find is laughable, and at times it is very painful for me. It becomes painful because I do not find words to express the amount of love, the amount of acceptance, the amount of rights I exercise in my country. It is very difficult for me to put it in words. There are some feelings, there are some things which can only be felt. It is very difficult to express. If I ask you how much your mother loves you, would you be able to express it? Of course it would be like, what a stupid kind of a question. Of course anybody would feel that. I have to give that explanation for my motherland. you know how do I live in India as a Muslim is a very, very unfortunate question that I have to answer. But yes, I would like to answer because people need to know. See, there is definitely a coordinated effort, Kamalji, which is being done by cherry picking of incidences. And they try to build a narrative which is against India. They try to paint Bharat in a very negative light. They try to humiliate it. And I call it a new way of invasion. I call it, I always say that the invasion of Bharat is still happening. It's just that their modus operandi have changed. This is 21st century, so they cannot invade by killing people, and by killing them by swords. They do it by humiliating our country. They do it by building a narrative against Bharat, and unfortunately, some people fall for it. But now the times are changing. Even Muslims are realizing the importance of Bharat. Muslims are able to compare their life in Bharat and lives of other Muslims in other Islamic states. This is global civilizations. We have social media. We get to, feel other people's pain. We also get to hear news and the happenings around the world. So it is no rocket science to differentiate that a Muslim in India and a Muslim outside India. जमीन और आसमान का तो मैं बोलती हूँ बहुत छोटा है, जमीन और पाताल का फर्क है. There is no comparison, whatsoever. And I would like to give you a few examples. People who do not know, I would like to know. See, first mosque after Medina was built in Bharat. It was built on a land which was given in charity by a Hindu king. हिंदू राजा ने अपनी जमीन दान देकर मस्जिद बनवाई थी, and that was the first mosque after Medina. And not just one mosque, there are thousands and lakhs of mosques and madrasas in Bharat which are standing tall and with respect and with dignity, and people celebrate them. Even non-Muslims go and worship there. So many dargahs we have, and non-Muslims also go and worship there, and respect them wholeheartedly. Even more than Muslims, non-Muslims go to these dargahs. So that kind of celebration we feel for different faiths. And then we have minority status. I find it very unfortunate, Kamalji, because when Bharat was divided, and when Pakistan was taken away, then of course at that time Muslims were minorities. And I truly do not feel that minority status was needed, because Bharat has never persecuted any minority group whatsoever. But still, for the sake of their mental peace, they were given that minority status. Ki, okay, nothing wrong will happen to you. But now Muslims are almost 30 plus crore, 35 crore people do not qualify to be called minorities. But still, Muslims are celebrating the status of minorities in India, in Bharat, and they get so many facilities, they get so many subsidies in the name of being minorities. And still these anti-national forces build these narratives that bad things are happening to Muslims. All these anti-national forces do that. I've covered the names of those anti-national forces in my previous question. They build this false narrative against Bharat and try to put those seeds of separation in a Muslim mind, so that a Muslim does not relate to Bharat as their motherland, or they fall victim to that victim card. Okay, I'm a Muslim, I'm a minority. So that minority is not a status; it is a card which is being played to blackmail Muslims' mind, to manipulate Muslim mind, and to actually use them just as head counts or foot soldiers to fulfill their maybe political agenda and the religious agenda of making Bharat an Islamic state. So two people use this victim card of minority card against Muslims. धर्म सत्ता चलाने वाले Islamic state belief वाले लोग, and political leaders who just try to use Muslims as vote banks. So these two people use that minority card. I would like to give you two examples, Kamalji, and it will explain this narrative very in a very simple manner. Like we've heard, just like few some time ago, we heard that mob lynchings are happening in India and Muslims are being lynched in India. And I was also called on national debates, national channels, and I was asked, what do you have to say about mob lynchings? I said, see, as a Bharatiya, I would definitely say that if a Muslim has been killed by anybody whatsoever, or anybody is killed by a mob or by people, it is wrong. When we say that Atma is not different from Paramatma, we do not believe in killing people. Of course, it is a crime, it is an offense, and it is wrong. But it is equally wrong to name it and label it as mob lynching. It is equally wrong to start calling your country as Lynchistan. It is equally wrong to start beating your chest and go to United Nations that, see, this thing is happening to Muslims. Because I do not want to use that statistics, because it doesn't it sounds very inhuman in such examples. But still, I would like to use that statistic that we are almost 135 crore people. In 135 crore people, if two Muslim boys are killed, the number is so small that you cannot even calculate it in percentage, and you call Bharat Lynchistan. That kind of a narrative building, that cherry picking, that is a crime. It should not happen. Not even one person should be killed. But that does not give you that liberty to start calling your country Lynchistan. That does not give you the liberty to start defaming your country. You just use it as an opportunity to start defaming Bharat. That's what they do. And I would like to give you an example, although it is not an appropriate thing to do, but still it is very important to give that example here, that similar unfortunate incidents have happened to non-Muslims also. We've heard incidents like lynching of Ankit Saxena, Dhruv Tyagi. But these incidents, because they are not Muslim names, these incidents, they are seldom reported, they are seldom talked about. Then people do not go to United Nations. So that Muslim name suits their politics of religion and their politics to rule. So that is why they use it against Bharat. That's what they do by cherry picking and exception. They start making exceptions rules. Exceptions. They start that narrative building against Bharat, which is very wrong. And another example would explain it very beautifully, Kamalji. That few days ago we were talking about incidents of love jihad. Like, in many places, like in Kashmir, we've had thousands of girls who were being married, and they were forced to convert, and girls who were not willing to convert, they were even being killed. One incident happened in Ballabgarh in Haryana. There was a girl called Nikita Tomar. She was there was a guy who was after her and was asking her to convert and then marry him. She refused to convert, and the guy shot her dead on the streets. So many thousands and lakhs of incidents of love jihad were there. Modus operandi were different, were doing it in different ways, but their main agenda was that converting Hindu girls, marrying them in the name of love, and just trying to spread their faith. So that is why it was called love jihad. So then these people were not labeling it as love jihad. Then these people were saying, okay, if a Muslim guy has done that to a Hindu girl, you please call that an offense. Please call it a crime. Do not label it as love jihad. So there they do not want labeling. Although the numbers are very high, thousands and lakhs of cases. And many people have even went to the Supreme Court of India. And in mob lynching, they even even two killings, even two numbers would be so big for them that they would start labeling it. So that is how they, this is the double standards that they have. And another example, very recent example, farmer agitation we are seeing against farmer laws. Like almost 6,000 farmers are protesting, and out of 700 million farmers, 700 million farmers, almost 6,000 are not accepting the laws or maybe confused. And that is like around 0.001%. And they are building that narrative. All the anti-national forces are trying to hijack that confusion of farmers or maybe their questions, and they've hijacked that movement, and they've started building a narrative against Bharat. Okay, farmers are being treated like this in India. So this is how they do it. And they have different tools of doing it. They have media, they have social media, and they have movie celebrities and people, who have that influence on people's psyche, people who have good social connects. And they all do it together. It is, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, it's a coordinated effort by all these anti Bharat forces, and they do it together. And we need to understand it, and we need to fight against it. And we need to actually look beyond the groups that they've created for us, and join hands and walk together. And only then we can fight with these forces, because they are very dangerous, they're very smart, and they're very coordinated, and they have money, they have power. So it is very important that we must realize to unite and stand together against them. Only then we would be able to defeat them.
Absolutely, Subhuji. That is very insightful. And like, if we have to look at some of the recent times now, it's been more than a year, but we saw a large number of, and we are seeing this even now, I mean, a large number of people being mobilized, and even, sometimes radicalized. We are seeing that in the farm protest, but if we go back to more than a year, we saw a large number of Muslims being, mobilized and radicalized, especially during the anti-CA protests. Can you tell us how are Muslims being radicalized, or you could also talk about radicalization in general? How is this happening?
When I started actually studying about it, and when I started reading the lives of people who were being, made terrorists, and how they are not even terrorists, how are they even radicalized or made kattar. So a very interesting finding is there, I would like to share with you. See, first, what they do is, this is a process called separatism, extremism, and terrorism, you know and I made it a part of my activism that I explain this process separately. That first, a Muslim mind is made a separatist. How they do it? uh, by telling him or her that you're different from the entire world. you know your lifestyle is different, your food is different, your language is different, the way you lead your life, the way you think should be different. And there is a very long list of haram and halal. Like I gave you an example in the beginning, that a woman who opens her hair, it is haram in Islam. And wearing nail paint is haram in Islam, or maybe wearing a lipstick is haram, or like we are doing this video chat, getting clicked is haram. And a very long list of haram and halal which they themselves do not follow. But just to make a Muslim mind separate from the entire world, they put these seeds of separatism in a Muslim mind. And music is haram, art is haram, dance is haram. you know Anything which makes you, or which takes you in a meditative mode, which makes you mingle with others, which makes you happy, is haram. Because they have to make you aggressive, they have to use you like foot soldiers to make their dream of Islamic State come true. So obviously they do not want you to be happy. They do not want you to coexist with other people. They do not want you to celebrate life. That is, and they want to make you aggressive. That is why they, whatever way possible, whatever they can even think of, they would try to separate you from the entire world. This is where fatwa comes into picture. At times we feel that, what foolish kind of fatwas they give, that hand sanitizer is haram, you know in during COVID times, using sanitizer is haram, taking polio drops are haram. Those kind of fatwas they bring. At times people feel that they're doing it because they're illiterate, but I would like to reiterate it time and again that they are not doing or throwing these fatwas because they're illiterate. They're very smart. They want to kill that rationality and that decision making power of a Muslim mind. What a Muslim kid can do, they would tell you. What a Muslim kid cannot do, that also they will tell you. That do's and don'ts should be regulated and controlled by them. And when a Muslim mind is so dependent on these do's and don'ts, that thinking capabilities, killed. That confidence is not there to take independent decisions. That is why these fatwa brigade, they work, to make a Muslim mind separate, to kill the thinking capacity, to just make them zombies, or to just make them robots. That is why this separatist process is done, and deliberately, and with malified intention, and with a proper agenda, and a very strong thought process is behind it. It is not just randomly or casually, or just because they're illiterate. So we should not trivialize it by saying that they're illiterate, that's why they're doing it. They're doing it very smartly, and they know why they're doing it. And once a Muslim mind is made separatist, then the second the second part of the process comes into picture, that is making them extremist. Once you are a separatist, then it becomes easier for them to make you an extremist. Now they would like to make you adamant and rigid. Okay, now this is what you believe. Only this is right. What others are thinking is wrong. That flexibility, that coexistence is killed. No, what you are thinking is right, what others are thinking are wrong. Once they are successful in making you an extremist, then they try to make you a terrorist. Because now what will happen? Kamalji, just imagine a mind which is separatist from others. He cannot mingle with others. He's not friends with others. Now he has become rigid also. Now he has become extremist also. Now he thinks I'm right and others are wrong. So of course, he would start, or he or she would start feeling isolated from the entire world. I do not have friends. People do not understand me. I'm different from others. Now he would start looking for solace. Now he would start seeking, okay, what will make me happy? What do I do? Now this terrorists, organizations come into picture. Now they make you a terrorist. Okay, now what others do not, if others do not believe in your belief, then you this is your duty to kill them. Either convince them, either make them like you, or it is your duty to kill them. And it is as a matter of duty. You would be rewarded for it. you know so they use that reward and punishment kind of a theory to control a Muslim mind. And they have that beautiful graphic image of Jannat and Dozak. If you would do this, you would get 72 hoods in Jannat, and Jannat has rivers of milk, and a beautiful place it is. That kind of a lalach and greed they try to plant in your mind, that if you do what we are saying, that you would get Jannat. And very dangerous graphic details of Dozak. If you would not do this, then you would be fried in hot oil, and insects would bite you, snakes would bite you. And they try to create that kind of a fear psychosis in a Muslim mind. So this is the entire process of separatism, extremism, and terrorism, which they follow to radicalize and make a Muslim mind a terrorist. And different organizations are working for it. We need to understand, if we would just think that one day we would terminate all terrorist organizations, it is not possible. If we have to eliminate terrorism, we would have to eliminate separatism itself. you know There are many organizations, many people who are making a Muslim mind separatist. There are organizations which are making a Muslim mind extremist. Then there are organizations which are making Muslim minds terrorists. Different people are doing different jobs. I would like to give you an example. In Europe, few terrorists were caught after bombings, and it was found that I think they were from Al Qaeda. And when further investigation was done, it was found that they were recruited from Tablighi Jamaat. And Tablighi Jamaat can obviously get away with it by saying that I am not a terrorist organization. You know, you can investigate and you can find no proof against me. But how and why is it a fruitful ground for a terrorist organization to recruit people? You know, you understand that link of separatist terrorist, separatist extremist and a terrorist. These extremist organizations, these separatist organizations are fruitful grounds for terrorist organizations to recruit, you know. So this is how they operate. Then there are companies, there are organizations who are there to fund. Their duties to uh, their part of the entire process is just to provide funds. So they're doing it very systematically and very smartly, and we need to understand that. And why they do it, this is a question many people ask, that why they do it. See, these people have nothing to do with Islam, and these people have nothing to do with Allah. You know, they obviously they try to blackmail your mind or manipulate your mind by saying that they're doing it in the service of Allah, maybe, and they're doing it to please Allah, maybe. But actually it is just a political agenda. They have this political agenda of making the entire world an Islamic state and to rule the entire world. So that agenda of Islamic state can only be fulfilled if they have foot soldiers, and if they have zombies, and if they have robots, people who cannot think on their own, people who do not have that rationality to differentiate between right and wrong. They need suicide bombers. You know, no rational person would go and, you know, just put a bomb in him or herself and just, you know, blow himself or herself out. Obviously, to make a person a suicide bomber, they have to, you know, completely brainwash and manipulate and hijack their minds. That is why they do it. And a very bogus theory is there that Islam is in danger. You know, they always say that Islam is in danger. I always ask them that you are the second largest faith in the entire world. How on earth you are in danger? You know, a Muslim should ask them, what is in danger? You know, you have put the entire world under danger, this Islamic State theory. And, you know, this Ghazwa-e Hind has put other people in danger. And you keep on repeating this theory that Islam is in danger, Islam is in danger. Because if a Muslim person will think that I am in danger, only then he would try to protect himself, only then he would try to become aggressive. So that is why they do it, and that is how they do it. That is why they make this narrative against Bharat, because this theory of Islamic State is obviously, it is against the entire world, against the entire humanity. They want to make the entire world an Islamic State. But against Bharat, they have a specific theory of Ghazwa-e Hind. You know, that Islamic State ki theory is summarized in Ghazwa-e Hind. Ghazwa-e Hind is a holy war against Bharat. So we, an Indian Muslim, must understand it and must fight against this with all their might. If you really think yourself as a Bharatiya.
Very fascinating, Subuhi. I think you've very comprehensively and deeply sort of dealt into the almost like a supply chain of separatism, extremism, and terrorism. And I think it's so important that we understand those links. Thank you for throwing light on that. And Subuhi, you also mentioned the idea of Ghazwa-e-Hind. Can you tell us about that? Like, what does it stand for? What does it mean?
Sure. See, Kamalji, as I mentioned before, Ghazwa-e-Hind means holy war against India. I find it laughable also that any war against India, how on earth can it be holy? You know, as an Indian, that things comes to the mind. But anyway, because it is a mental disease. So of course we cannot expect any rationality behind that, the literal meaning of the term. But their main agenda is what their belief is. They believe that till the time Bharat's history, Bharat's literature and scripture, and Bharat's culture would not be destroyed, till the time this will not happen, if we are not able to do this, then Qayamat will not come. Day of judgment will not come. So they feel that it is their duty, you know, to terminate or to eliminate Bharat's itihas, shastra, and Sanskriti, and they do it in different forms. And it is very important to understand, because even educated Muslims, even rational Muslims at times ask me, and they say that Didi, now that time has gone when invaders used to come. Now it is not happening. So why do we have to think about it? Why do we have to talk about it? So I always tell them, see, the mission is still the same. I always say that their agenda is still the same, the theory is still the same, only the modus operandi has changed. Because we are in 21st century, now we have human rights, we have United Nations. Of course, you cannot do it very, overtly and very directly. So you do it in a very covert manner, you do it in a very subtle manner, in a very insidious manner, and you do it like standing behind the curtains. And like, of course, Muslim invaders are not coming and directly invading India and killing people like they used to do, and they've done it for centuries. Now that the way of invasion has changed, now they do it by controlling our psyche. Now they do it by demoralizing our culture, by demoralizing our beliefs, demoralizing our habits, our gods, our idols, who we worship. And they do it by glorifying invaders, like, they even in textbooks, even today in textbooks, we see like glorifying Aurangzeb, and glorifying invaders like Ghazanvi, Ghori, Muhammad bin Qasim. And one example I always give, Kamalji, like, uh, if you go through the history of the world, for example, in Germany, just by taking Hitler's name, you're put behind the bars. You know, even if you just take Hitler's name, you are put behind the bars. That kind of seriousness they have against that terror. Ki, okay, that man, that even the name should not be taken in the country anymore. It is only in Bharat that the invaders and all those Akrantas who have mercilessly ruled us, mercilessly killed us, and they've done mass rapes, murders, slaughters in our country, and they're being glorified in the country. What is it? Is it not modern invasion? Is it not controlling our psyches? Is it not try to uh, you know uh, rule our psyches? If you want me to be very direct, why do we have to glorify them? They're not ruling us anymore, and we still do it, and even educated people do it. And then they have this break India agenda. That is another way of modern invasion. And break India agenda is done in many ways, like north south divide, then we have caste divide, then we have gender divide, then linguistic divide, minority majority divide. They've created so many divisions in the country, and that divide and rule policy has not ended on British rule. I always say that they've just changed their face, they've just changed the way they do it, but what they're doing is still the same. We need to understand they've become smarter, and they've just they're just trying to cover it up, and we are very maybe innocent or maybe ignorant that we do not understand it. It's high time that we should start feeling that at times people tell me that, why do you behave like a krantikari? We don't need krantikaris anymore, we don't need freedom fighters anymore. And I tell them ki even today the country is suffering, and struggling and fighting with so many anti-national forces, that even today we need krantikaris. We need to understand कि वो emergency वाली situation आज भी है. The moment we would sit and understand the map of Bharat, and the moment we would see that we have Pakistan on one side, we have China on the other side, we have so many anti-national forces running in, the imposters in the country, and and the anti-national forces who are trying to implode Bharat, that day we would understand that matlab emergency hai. If you ask me, matlab, even while telling you, I have that goosebumps ki we need to understand that thing, that the invasion is still happening. It has not ended. And they humiliate Bharat just because they want to rule us, and we have to fight them out. We have to kick them out by whichever way possible, and we can only do it together, and by becoming one, and by understanding that spiritual oneness that we have in the foundation of our country.
Absolutely, absolutely, Subhuji. I think you've very rightly pointed out the need to actually wake up and see these challenges as well. And there are so many of them. They are just staring us, right in the face. So, uh, Subhuji, I also want to ask you about um, how where do Indian Muslims sort of, and how do they ordinary Indian Muslims make sense of what's happening, and what would your message be to them, given all of this context?
Very simple message I want to give them, and it is actually no rocket science, Kamalji. Initially it was becoming difficult for me to explain to Muslims what is the meaning of Sanatani Musalman. Initially it was becoming difficult for me to explain them this entire process of separatism, extremism, and terrorism. But whenever a Muslim kid or whenever a Muslim mind just sits and try to understand the process and the agenda, no, nobody is inherently bad, nobody is inherently wrong. Of course those exceptions are anti-nationals are there. If you just leave them aside, I always say that there are three kinds of Muslims in Bharat: rashtriya, like like nationalists, and then there are arashtriya, people who are clueless. They are neither national, they are nor anti-nationals, but they are clueless. They do not know what is happening. And then there are anti-nationals. So I do not interact with anti-nationals, but I try to unite nationalists, and I try to convince Arashtriya or clueless Muslims, because they have the right to understand what is happening. They have the right to join the mainstream and become the part of Bharat as everybody else is. And so I always tell them, read and learn, and read about Islamic history. It is very simple. It is no rocket science. If any Muslim is listening to this video, I ask them to just make quick notes. Just read about Islamic history, how and when the agenda of Islamic State started, and since when the biddats, the manipulations in Islam started after the death of Prophet Muhammad, when the Khalifas came. All those manipulations in Islam started from there. And the Islamic script was also distorted. There are so many hadiths which are fabricated, and even about Quran, even about the scripts of Quran, there are so many discrepancies. The Khalifas, the third Khalifa, he collected almost 400, 500 manuscripts of Quran, and he burnt them because he was not convinced about this manuscripts which were compiled by the previous two Khalifas. So even among the Khalifas, there were so many fights in regards to the manuscript of. So Islamic scriptures have also been manipulated. We need to understand that. And we need to read about Wahhabism and Salafism. And we need to learn about Ghazwa Hind. And most importantly, as an Indian Muslim, you need to read and learn about Bharat's history. The day you would do that, you would realize the blessing that you have. You would be so grateful that you are born in this magnificent land that is Bharat, and not just land, it is motherland. हम लोगों के लिए Bharat is not just a geographical location, it is our mother. And there is a reason why we call it a mother. if we would learn Bharat's history, if we would learn about Bharat's scripture, Bharat's foundation, Bharat's ethos, Bharat's collective consciousness, we would understand that, that people just break us for their vested interest. And Bharat has never invaded any country. Bharat has never hurt anybody. Bharat has never persecuted any minority group whatsoever. Leave aside Muslims. Muslims are not even minorities, 35 crores. And let me give an example of Jews. Jews were persecuted throughout the world. Throughout the world, Jews were persecuted. And I think in 1948, when they went back to Israel, and in their first parliament session, they passed a resolution and they praised Bharat like anything. And they were like, we would never forget this, that we were persecuted throughout the world, but not in Bharat. So that is the beauty of our country. So I would request all the Indian Muslims to read and learn about Islamic history, to read and learn about Bharat's history. And I would request you to rectify your leaders, or maybe the heroes you look up to. Let me give you a very beautiful example. In 1947, Pakistanis had done a Kabaili attack on Kashmir. So they were trying to invade Kashmir, or go inside Kashmir, and they were not able to find the way how to enter. So they found a guy called Maqbool Sherwani, and they asked him, okay, tell us how to enter inside the streets. And that guy realized that what is their agenda. So that guy Maqbool Sherwani was a nationalist Muslim. He just took them round and round the Kashmir, and he did not tell them the right path, the right route. And when the Pakistanis realized that he's trying to make fool of them, he was crucified and killed. And unfortunately, in Kashmir, these anti-national forces make Burhan Wani the hero, but they do not talk about Maqbool Sherwani. So this thing we as Muslims need to understand, that nobody is against Muslims. We are against anti-national forces, which are not just Muslims. Islamic State ki theory or Ghazwa Hind is just one anti-national force. We are against all the anti-national forces. So we as Indian Muslims should understand that we have better heroes to look up to. We do not have to cry for Afzal Guru. We do not have to feel sad for Burhan Wani. We have Brigadier Usman. We have APJ Kalam. We have Ashfaqullah Khan. We have Ibrahim Gardi. We have Maqbool Sherwani. We have many, many good Muslim heroes that we should look up to. And another beautiful example I want to give you before we conclude this interview, that there was a Muslim name, Shah Waliullah Delvi, I guess, if I'm not wrong. And when Mughals were, just struggling to regain power in India, in Bharat, this Waliullah Delvi wrote letter to Abdali to, come and attack Bharat. And on this invitation, Abdali attacked Bharat. And that was the time when the Third Battle of Panipat happened. And Marathas had to, lose that war, that Third Battle of Panipat. And I always give this example that unfortunately, that attack was done by a Muslim, Abdali, on the invitation of Muslim, Waliullah Delvi. But we must not forget that Marathas' army chief who died in the Third Battle of Panipat was Ibrahim Gardi. So we have always had this beautiful history of Bharat, that no matter these Islamic State wale and these invaders and these Akrantas have always attacked Bharat, but we have always had nationalists, Muslims, who have laid their lives to protect this motherland. So our duty as Indian Muslims is to make those our heroes, to look up to such Muslims. Although I personally believe that, we should come out of that thinking that only a Muslim can be our hero. I look up to Subhash Chandra Bose. You know, my prerna purush is Subhash Chandra Bose. But even if you feel connected, and even if a Muslim mind has a Muslim as his or her prerna purush or his or her hero, we have plenty of them. So I just tell them that please just rectify your heroes. And another important message I want to give to Indian Muslims is learn and read your scriptures in the language which you understand. Arabic is not our language. You know, we are made to just ratify Quran and ratify all these verses in Arabic, which we do not even understand what they mean. So, you know, what is the something which you do not understand? Quran is the book which is translated in almost most of the languages. So always read it in the language which you understand. Only then you would be able to understand it better. Only then you would be able to see if if you have any questions to ask about it. And always be a seeker. Always be a seeker. Always ask questions. Whoever tries to discourage your questions, whoever tries to hijack your mind or put an end to your rationality, your thinking capabilities, or your decision making power, always think that person is not your well wisher, and he or she maybe has some kind of an agenda, that they are just trying to use you for some purpose. They can be religious leaders, they can be political leaders, they can be your teachers or your gurus or mentors, whoever. Just the mind, the brain is given to us to apply. And Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. This is very important message I always give to Muslims, that Allah loves us even more than our parents. We should not be God say that the most beneficent, the most merciful. He's not going to fry us in hot oil. Come on, please come. Please come over it, get over this, and get over that fear psychosis which is being created just to blackmail and hijack our minds. And the creator is very merciful, the creator is very flexible, and Allah is Rabbul Alameen. He's not just Rabbul Muslimin. So that means he's the God, he's the creator of all the things, animate and inanimate objects. And just do not put or try to capture Allah in just one belief, one box, one book, one uh, haram halal ki list, or to do do's or don'ts ki list. That's all I want to say to Muslims. And beautiful history you have as Muslims also, and as Bhartiyas also. We are तो मैं तो डबल लकी अपने आप को बोलती हूँ कि मतलब एक एंटी नेशनल फोर्स जो मेरे फेथ के नाम पे मेरे भारत के खिलाफ काम कर रही है. एंड आई फील दैट इट इज माय ड्यूअल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. It becomes all the more responsibility of me as an Indian Muslim कि मुझे as a Muslim भी उसके against fight करना है, because it is defaming my faith also. A Muslim should understand ki if you really feel connected to Allah, if you really want to do something in the name of Allah, it is your responsibility to show what real Islam is. It is your responsibility to show what a real Muslim is. Or as an Indian, to kya hi bolu. So that is all I want to cover in my last answer. I'm feeling dizzy also today. I don't know why.
Yeah, thank you so much, Subuhi. I think it's a very insightful, and very inspiring set of thoughts that you've shared with us on a variety of issues that we have discussed, and we've covered a lot of ground. Thank you so much for patiently sharing all of those insights with us. And I'm sure our viewers have a lot to think about, a lot to ponder upon, and there's also a call to action, and there's a message of seeking that you've very beautifully shared with all of us. Thank you so much, Subhuji, for that.
Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Thank you so much, Subhuji. And to our viewers, I would like to request you continue supporting us Please do subscribe to both our channels, the Festival of Bharat and Citti Media, because we will be posting content on both of them. And we will be back with another such fascinating conversation. Until then, take care and namaste.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Citti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.